You got problems. I'll say it again because it's what you got. And it's what we're going to use to kick this thing off and start talking about how you yourself can come up with a sweet business idea or startup idea. The premise is pretty simple. You want to start a business or work on your entrepreneurial creativity, if that's a thing, but you might not have the idea of your dreams yet. So take some time and watch one video at a time. Preferably take notes with whatever you like to use, whether it's pencil and paper, stone and stone carving kit, Apple Notes, or even that big bloated piece of Evernote that never syncs and is probably frozen in your tray right now. If you keep it up and open your mind, then you're bound to come up with some stuff that's at least worth investigating. We're gonna start with the granddaddy of all business ideation strategies, what I call you got problems, or alternatively pronounced, you got problems. Why is it the granddaddy? Well, because it's the one that's old, and if you've been doing this for a while, then you probably already know of it. So if that describes you, then consider this a refresher. And for the rest of you, well, listen up. The strategy of you got problems is simple. You have problems. You can't find your car keys. It takes too long to get to work. You can't find a good movie to watch. Maybe you can't keep track of all of your online subscriptions, or, oh my God, you're not yet at inbox 0. What most people do not realize is that virtually every single business out there today either started by or exists because it solves a problem. Say that again out loud. Businesses solve problems. Yes, we're actually the heroes in this story. I don't care if a bird landed on your podium. To illustrate this point, let's just take a second and think. What are the first 5 companies that come to mind if you just thought 5 companies? Okay, you got them. Well, with every single one you can think of, and if you think hard enough, can you actually think of the problem that business solves? Because I guarantee it solves something. Uber gets you where you need to go faster and cheaper. Airbnb saves you from being price gouged by hotels and helps you avoid a generic, sterile experience of sleeping in a motel. Zynga solves the problem of thinking your newsfeed is too empty. Kidding, but any video game service or video game company solves the problem of, can you guess it? It solves the problem of being bored.
Bored. What? Bored!
Boredom is a problem. The Soma water filter solves the problem of getting judgmental smirks from your dinner guests because your Brita looks cheap. And this smart iron solves, well, I guess it solves the pain of having to move your body to check out how much water it has in it. Or I guess, what if you forgot how to iron while ironing? Well, it's got an app for that. Another thing worth noting, if you took those 5 companies we just did in your head and searched for them on Wikipedia, I guarantee at least 70% of the stories of why the founders started said companies would be based off of the story of they had a problem and they went about solving it. Why? Well, because it's a really good story and coincidentally, the most consistently effective way of finding things to solve and thus build a business around that process. I could drown you in stories of how founders started their companies by solving problems. Dropbox was founded by Drew Houston, who hated forgetting to bring files with him to work and driving back and getting them. Mint.com started because Aaron Patzer was using that god-awful software called Quicken to keep track of his personal finances. The list could really go on and on. Even every problem I listed before that you and your disheveled self have indeed has a company trying to solve it. Can't find your car keys? Well, add a tile to it. Takes too long to get to work? Have you tried Uber? Or if you live in San Francisco, a thing called Chariot? Can't keep track of your online subscriptions? Well, there's actually a thing called Truebill, another thing called Billy, another thing called Bobby, and then there's the one I use, but I can't really remember it. I guess that's kind of the point. I forget things. So how do we take this very basic epiphany and turn it into a business idea? Well, this one is very simple. Take out a sheet of paper and write down the things you have problems with throughout the day. Not the kid who scuffed your sneakers in 7th grade, although I guess you could solve that. I mean things you struggle to do or not completely satisfied with. When there is pain or a struggle or dissatisfaction, there is an opportunity to improve that process and create value for a potential customer. So do that, go list them out. Then right next to it, list out 2 things. 1, frequency, and 2, depth. In order to fill out frequency, rate it from 1 to 10 and ask yourself, how often do I have this pain? Does it happen frequently or does it happen rarely? And then for depth, do the same thing and ask yourself, how big of a deal is this pain? Is it a minor inconvenience or is it code red, I'm going to spontaneously combust bad?
All units, we have a code red.
Use those then to inform your decision making. The best problems to solve have an element to both or are very strong in at least one of those two. Uber, if you haven't noticed, is very successful. What type of pain do you think they solve? Is it the end of the world to call a cab? No, but it's a headache. Would Uber be a $60 billion company if it was just a headache you sometimes had to deal with? Well, no. The frequency people need a car is very, very high. I need to go somewhere several times a day. So once you have that list, and if you're short, therapize your friends and ask for their problems, then you just have to ask two questions. One, can I solve this problem? And two, is it worth solving? If you can say yes and yes to any of those on your list, then you yourself have a legitimate opportunity that's just waiting to be investigated. So list out your 99 problems, 100 if you have a girlfriend, rate the frequency and depth, and then use that list as your to investigate list. Trust me, you'll find something. It is that easy.
Just as the rug is your problem, just as every bum's lot in life is his own responsibility, regardless of who he chooses to blame. I didn't blame anyone for the loss of my legs, but I went out and achieved anyway. I cannot solve your problem, sir. Only you can.
Well,